Welcome back to my video, and today we're doing a weekly wrap-up. But this week I wanted to do a little experiment. I wanted to see if I was too old for YA or if I could finally find some YA that I enjoyed. I read a couple last year and they were pretty hit or miss for me, and I just decided that maybe YA isn't for me, so I set out this week to change that. I like reading diversely. I never want to feel like I can't browse that section when I'm at the library or bookstore. So I ended up reading 4 YA books. I really tried to diversify kind of the subcategory that they were. So to give you an idea of kind of the books that I've tried before and some of the ones that I'm still interested in trying, I put up this little graph of how I've liked YA so far. So from this, you can see that I had a couple of wins. The wins are the Golden Compass. Armor Bears should be in every fantasy book. You also have Our Infinite Fate, which was a very surprising win. I adored the plot. Fated lovers who find each other in every life but have to kill each other on their 18th birthday. It also had the best audio narration I've heard. Now, for the worst, you have Prison Healer, a very popular book, but the pacing is so painfully slow, and even the great ending that people talk about doesn't make much sense. You also have Wilder Girls, which had a good beginning, but had a sloppy end. You had Immortal, which again was disappointing and not very thought out in my opinion. That being said, though, it's actually the 3 stars that made me stop reading YA. Because I didn't hate these. Particularly Samadhi, I enjoyed the plot points and I thought the writing was really good. The parts that I didn't like about these 3 stars are the things that make it YA. So I felt like it was stupid to keep reading YA just to complain about the parts that make it YA. On the right, these are some YA books I've considered reading and would love your thoughts on whether they're worth it. You have Lesbian's Guide to Catholic School by Serena Reyes. I've read her adult book, The Proposal, and liked it. There's Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. I know the movie is much different, but I love that movie. Then you have Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. Now, I'll be honest, I don't have actual interest in this book. It's just so popular, I'm open-minded for someone to talk me into it. Then you have Hazelthorn by C.G. Drew. Queer Gothics are like a niche favorite, so this one could be a real win. We have Legendborn. Sounds amazing. I'm just not the biggest fantasy reader, so I'm worried I might not actually like it. And lastly, Eragon by Christopher Poloni. Again, I'm not a huge fantasy reader. It was also recommended to me by the person who said The Golden Compass was good. And I really liked that one, so I'd be willing to give this a try. For the books that I chose for this one, we have Ender's Game by Orson Scott. This is the sci-fi. We have Subtle is the Knife. This is the second in the Dark Materials series, so the Golden Compass was the first one. Those were the 2 that were on my physical. Then in the library, I picked up The Mystery, That's Not My Name by Megan Lally. And lastly, another library pick, we have It Was the Forest by Sarah Doss. Now again, instead of going in chronological order, I like to go from best to worst. So my number 1 win, it was a 4-star, so unfortunately still no 5-star YA, was It Waits in the Forest by Sarah Doss. This was a random pickup. I don't think I've ever heard anyone read this. And originally, I thought this was a fantasy based on this absolutely beautiful cover. But it is actually a horror thriller. And this book is about Selena De Silva. She is stuck in her hometown on a small island of St. Vigil. To make a living, she actually is like a fake psychic. So she tricks gullible tourists into buying talismans. It's not something she actually believes in, but it's a way for her to make money. And she's able to do that because her mother actually was heavily into magic, so she has a bit of a reputation in town, and so she leans into it even though she personally doesn't believe in it. However, when she gets a very mysterious customer, she's drawn into murders that have happened on the island, as well as they seem to be connected with the murder of her father, and then she teams up with her ex-boyfriend Gabriel to figure it out, and eventually it draws her into the magic happening in the forest. I thought that the mystery was a lot of fun. In the first part, it's a little bit more grounded in a way, but it also has some great paranormal parts to it. I thought this was really tension-filled. It was a lot of fun. She has a lot of chemistry with her ex-boyfriend, and I just loved the whole thing. I will say you can figure out the twist, but not until a little bit later in the book, and I still think it was fun. Definitely gets chaotic in that last 25%, so that's why it's not like a 5-star read. I also didn't love the love triangle at the beginning. I think that's the only part that felt really YA tropey. I didn't think her relationship and Edward really added anything in the book, but I loved the mystery. I loved the horror aspects to this. I liked the paranormal aspect to this. It uses Caribbean folklore for it, so it was just completely fascinating to me. This author also writes a new book that came out in January, and I definitely want to check that one out. Number 2, we have Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. This is what started this little experiment. It is YA, but it feels quite a lot darker than most YA do. It's definitely a little bit more mature, and I really liked it. I gave it a 4. It is nothing like I expected it to be. I kind of expected it to be your typical space opera about kind of military, political, strategy, and logic puzzles. It's about Ender Wiggins, this genius 6-year-old who's sent to battle school so he can become the next great general who will help save humanity from the alien species. However, instead of like a military strategy book, this is much more like psychological. This is more about kind of the tests and trials that Ender has to go through and how they're trying to break him down and how he's struggling with becoming this person they want him to be, which is a killer, versus his deep empathy that he feels. And it was fascinating. Throughout this book, I kind of thought how we do this to children in society when we give them a job. So like children are supposed to be really innocent, just having fun when they're just normal kids. But the second we say a child is like a child actress or a child athlete, suddenly they're able to handle pressure that most adults can't, and suddenly they have to face all these trials and these horrible psychological trauma, and it's all okay under the guise of, well, at least they won or they signed up for it. And so pretty hard to read, and just relating it back to what we do in society, I did feel for Ender. However, it's not a favorite, maybe because I read this when I was an adult. I didn't fully connect with Ender. I definitely did feel bad for him. I did like the adults kind of more. I liked Gaff in this book. I liked the first part of like each chapter where the adults talk about what they're doing to him and why they're doing it to him. So I did like that part quite a bit. I haven't heard much about the sequels to this book, but I am looking forward to reading them. Next up is our mystery thriller, and it's That's Not My Name by Megan Lally. This is a debut novel, and it is 2 point of views. So first, you have this young teenager who wakes up in a ditch with absolutely no memory. But then when she's at the police station, this frantic man who claims to be her father comes to pick her up. Once he kind of proves he has all the identification, she goes back with him and tries to regain her memories, and she learns her name is Mary. The other point of view, you have Drew. He's a teenager whose girlfriend went missing after a fight, and he's desperately trying to find her and bring her back home. Unfortunately, the police think he did it, so they're not looking for her, and they're trying to prove that he's guilty. Now, I think for a debut novel, the writing was solid, so I did round this up a little bit to a 3. I think it was fast-paced and fun. I do just think you have to shut off your brain. If you think too hard about this book, it kind of falls apart in the first chapter, because it does do that stereotypical YA thing where all the adults are pretty much useless at doing their jobs or being responsible at all. So you definitely have to suspend your disbelief. I think you also could figure out the twist ending, but I still had a fun time. So I gave this a 3, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this author does again. I think this was some solid writing and great for a debut novel. I try to be kinder in debut novels. I think it takes a lot of risk to write a book, and I think this was a great start. If you're already into mystery thrillers, especially YA, I would say this is worth a try. Then lastly, we have Subtle is the Knife. As you can see, this was my least favorite. Not only that, it might be my least favorite of the year. I could see this easily ending up in my top 10 worst at the end of the year. This was painful. I think the only reason I finished it is because I liked The Golden Compass, and I just kept thinking if I read just a little bit more, I'll get something that hooks me back in, that will make me want to continue the series. Unfortunately, it didn't, and this is a 1 star. I should have DNF'd this. Now, the first book, The Golden Compass, definitely has that anti-religious tone in it, which I'm not against. I think if you can have something like Narnia that is very pro-religion, you can have the opposite in YA. It's just with Golden Compass, it was subtle. There was still that fantasy, that whimsy. You had the armored bears, you had the demons, you had the witches. It was still fun. This is not subtle at all. This is extremely heavy-handed. In fact, it basically just says we're going to kill God. It does say that over and over again. There's angels. The whole time I was reading it, I thought, how do children actually like this? I don't understand. It took everything I liked about The Golden Compass and threw it out the window. Like, I even liked Lara in the first book. She is strong-willed. She braves the fears of the world to save her friend. This book, she just basically becomes this whiny side character who's there to serve this new character boy Will, and I absolutely hated what happened to her character. And like, Lara in the first book is a bit of a Mary Sue, but that's kind of YA, where the main child is like perfect. But it's even worse in this one. I absolutely hated this. Didn't like any of the characters. There was no whimsy in this book, and I will not be continuing this series at all. And I'm probably going to unhaul it. I think I'll keep The Golden Compass, but the other 2 are going for sure. So overall, I guess still a mix, but I did get closer to liking things. I got 2 more 4 stars, which is fantastic, especially this early in the year. Starting to get what I like in YA. I think when I pick YA up next, although again, I'm still not drawn to it, I think though I will stick to horror right now. I really liked the horror elements in all of these books. That's what interested me in the most. So based on the ones that I said before, I think Hazel Thorn is definitely probably my next YA that I choose. Plus the same author Sarah Dass's new book, It Lurks in the Dark, could be a good read as well. However, again, I'm still interested in recommendations, so let me know what you thought of these books and what I should read next. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next one.